focus, stay on message. Remember, signal, not noise. This is all noise, that's signal. Thank you very much.
Are you optimistic today?
Top Trump ally Steve Bannon, that's him there, as he turned himself in to federal authorities in Washington. He was charged with 2 counts of contempt of Congress. Bannon defied a subpoena from lawmakers investigating the January 6th Capitol riots. When Joe Biden won the U.S. presidential election, Donald Trump refused to accept the results. He made a string of false fraudulent claims around the election and tried to pressure those officials. My next guest is one of those officials. Brad Raffensperger is Georgia's Secretary of State. If you remember, he took that phone call from Donald Trump to find the votes to overturn the election results in that state. Secretary of State Raffensperger is in Atlanta. Thank you for speaking with us. I'd like to start with your take on the state of democracy in the U.S. 1 year after we saw what's unfolded.
Well, good evening. I wrote my book, Integrity Counts, to document everything that happened last year and during the fall 2020 election. And so I went by point, rebutted every charge that was made. But also I do lay out that one thing that undermines elections is these stolen election claims. We've been fighting this now for over 3 years. Stacey Abrams lost by 55,000 votes. President Trump then lost last year by nearly 12,000 votes. Whether people claim voter suppression or voter fraud, it's the same coin, just 2 different sides. And what it does is undermine voter confidence. And so that's what I think we need to address. We need to have integrity in the people that run for elected office, to admit when they do lose gracefully. And then if we want to run again, then by all means come back and run, 2 years later or 4 years later, whatever the case may be.
I want to specifically talk about former President Trump, though, because he still is a factor on this political. He could run again for president in 2024. I'm just curious as to what you think the impact his campaign of the false election win that he claims to have made, what the impact is on democracy in your country.
I wrote a 10-page letter to Congress. They rebutted every single claim. They got it on January 6th, 2021. I know they're kind of busy that day with other matters, but no one has refuted anything that in my letter that I wrote to them. So no one's come back and said I was wrong on any of the points. So there weren't 10,000 dead people that voted. There was less than 5. There was no underage voting, and there weren't thousands of felons. There was less than 74 that voted. Every single point that they made was refuted, and it's not been, they have not come back and disagreed with me on any point. But there's these, social media, things get out there, and it's really difficult. It's a rumor whack-a-mole. And so we gently, respectfully have, responded to every single charge that was made.
Trump has not stopped this attempt to rewrite history. I'm on his emailing list, and there were at least 1 or 2 emails today still talking about how he thinks that election was rigged. Does it surprise you that, a year later, this is still going on?
It is interesting that it's still going on. I do help my Republican friends because I'm a conservative Republican. I give them 3 data points to help them to understand what happened in Georgia. But in Georgia, 28,000 Georgians skipped the presidential race but voted down ballot. And then in the Republican congressional areas, the Republican congressman got 33,000 more votes than President Trump. And our former Senator David Perdue got 20,000 more votes in the metro areas than President Trump. Those 3 data points really tell you everything that you need to know about the election.
Now, you just mentioned you are a Republican. You are a proud Republican. And when you look at what goes on in Congress, when Trump's defenders speak out for him, what do you think?
Well, integrity counts. And I know at the end of the day, I can look myself in the mirror knowing that I followed the law, followed the Constitution, and that's really important. But sometimes people need to have what I call gumption. You can call it moral courage, but to make sure that you stand on the line of integrity and walk that line of integrity. Our law enforcement officers do it every day. Our election officials and all of our local precincts at our county level, they're walking the line of integrity. Integrity counts, and that's what we need to restore in America.
Do you expect that Donald Trump will run again for president in 2024? And if he does, what do you think of that?
Well, I have no idea what he'll be doing in 3 years now. But I do know that we have a race coming up in 2022, our governor's race and all of our constitutional officers in Georgia, a lot of races throughout America for Congress. And so I think that voter integrity will be on the ballot. People need to understand that we had safe and secure elections in America.
Now, one thing that is a question from a Canadian audience, at least, the world sort of watched as after, Donald Trump had made so many false claims about voter fraud, and your state was one of them, and one of the sort of battleground states there, is that not long after that drama unfolded, your state passed a law to change voting laws. And there had been some questions, some criticism from Democrats who claimed that it is voter suppression, that perhaps these new laws and some of the rules around voting would make it more difficult, particularly for Democrats to participate in the vote. What do you make of that?
Well, we actually increased the number of days of early voting. We went from 16 days up to 17 days. We kept no excuse absentee voting, and we have election day voting. We have more early voting in Georgia than they have in New York State, New Jersey, and Delaware. And so we've actually led on that. Then we also instituted a law that counties need to keep all of their lines that when people show up to vote shorter than 1 hour. And if they don't, the next election cycle, they have to bust the precinct in half, split the voters up, or they have to add additional equipment. So we've added an awful lot of improvements for the voting process. And we've also moved away from signature match for the absentee ballot and gone to driver's license numbers and photo ID. And we've been sued by both the Democrat and Republican parties over signature match. They said it was subjective. So we've taken that off the table and gone to an objective measure like they use in Minnesota. Minnesota's used that same procedure for over 10 years now.
You have facts to back up your statements that there was no widespread voter fraud in your election in 2020. So I'm curious, you have the facts to back it up. You can prove it. I'm wondering why you needed to adopt change when things went according to plan in your state.
Well, like I said, we've been sued by both the Democrat and Republican parties on signature match. We've moved to a very objective criteria driver's license, and that's what they've been using in Minnesota. So we just take that argument off the plate, actually increase the number of days of early voting. And so we've made several improvements like that. And so I think at the end of the day, if you look at the total global perspective of our election laws, we're in the mainstream in America. And I'm good with facts. I'm a structural engineer. And so I know that the facts are on our side. Now it's just gently and respectfully getting that message out to everyone so they can understand that in Georgia, President Trump did come up short by 11,779 votes.
All right, Secretary of State Raffensperger, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.